Hello viewers, welcome to today's episode of the Youth Time on Grace Live TV. In the 2015 World Summit Outcome Document, United Nations member states recognized the importance of the unique experience and resources that the United Nations system brings to global issues and recommended the implementation of current reforms of operational activities for development aimed at an effective, efficient, and a better performing United Nations country presence with a strengthened role of the senior official, a common management, programming, and monitoring framework. One of the key recommendations of the panel was that the United Nations deliver as one at country level with one leader, one budget, one program, and where appropriate, one office. And Ghana adopted this model since 2012. On today's episode, we're set with the United Nations Resident Coordinator in Ghana, Mr. Charles Abani, to ascertain the measures taken to ensure the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals in Ghana and the United Nations Sustainable Development Partnership, which commenced in 2018 and ends in 2022. On this program, I sit with ambassadors, diplomats, foreign missions, and leaders in the know whose lifestyle positively impacts the African youth to aspire greatness. This is the Youth Time on Grace Live TV with me, your host, Vanessa Ado. You can call me the voice of the youth. Diplomatic information and more is what we bring to you on Grace Live TV. Don't go anywhere, the show commences very shortly. So welcome back to the Youth Time. As I said earlier, I'm here with the United Nations Resident Coordinator in Ghana. And at the end of the show, you will attest the fact as to why he is the best of the best on his role. Mr. Charles Abani.
Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. It is indeed a great honor to sit with you today.
And thank you for having me on your program.
You're most welcome. Akwaba.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Right.
Medase.
So before we delve deeper, let us start from the scratch. Can you kindly tell us a little bit about yourself and the roles you play as the United Nations Resident Coordinator in Ghana?
So let me first build off your introduction around the reforms of 2012.
Right.
Member states, including Ghana, met again in 2017, 2018 to advance those reforms. And as part of that process, agreed to delink the Office of the Resident Coordinator from all the agencies, for all the agencies here, essentially to provide a coordination, synergy, coherence, and cohesion kind of role that ensures that all the different entities, and in Ghana here we have 35, 21 of them have footprints and boots on the ground. The others don't necessarily have a presence here, but they have programming and work that they do. And it ranges from everything from supporting peace and security in Ghana to development to issues of those left behind. And so bringing synergy to that work, ensuring that agencies are playing to their comparative advantage, and more importantly, that we are listening to the countries whom we are here to serve. The United Nations is a membership organization, and Ghana has been a proud member of the United Nations for many years. And so ensuring that increasingly we're not bringing a top-down global agenda only, but we're actually enabling Ghana's voice to be heard globally. This is the essence of the reform and the essence of removing the Resident Coordinator's office from any of the agencies was to play this role of an impartial, if you like, broker, facilitator, and enabler. And indeed, those three terms are really close to my heart in terms of what the UN should be doing in Ghana. Listening closely to government and its priorities, ensuring that we're bringing the global agenda. Many of the things that need to be solved in the world today, COVID-19 we've just seen, the climate crisis, peace and security in the sub-region, no one country can solve these problems alone. And so the essence of multilateralism arising out of the Second World War was really how do countries come together to solve these problems? But increasingly, how do we ensure that there isn't just a single narrative and every country, like Ghana, has an opportunity to articulate its own vision and that we're here to support that vision.
Wow, that is a great work, and we are so proud that it is your office that's championing all of this. One important thing that I would also like to highlight and let the youth know that the resident coordinator system aims to bring together the different UN agencies to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of operational activities at the country level through the UN One delivery approach. So how has this been since its inception as Ghana, as you just probed on? How has it been in respect to the United Nations Sustainable Development Partnership, which commenced from 2017-18 to now?
Thank you.
What does it stand now?
Yeah, so we, when I arrived here 2 years ago, we're in the middle of implementing the current cooperation framework. I use cooperation framework as the shorthand for this. And clearly embedding delivery as one, having UN agencies work more closely together, more aligned across the work that they do with ministries, with civil society, and increasingly and emergingly with the private sector. How are we coordinated more effectively? And some of this comes through in some of the joint work that we do together. For example, we know as we prepare for a new cooperation framework that financing for the Sustainable Development Goals is a significant challenge. With the impacts of COVID and more recently, some of the fallouts of the Russia-Ukraine war, and I think the global climate crisis generally, developing countries, no matter their status, are struggling to find enough resources to deliver on the Sustainable Development Goals. In fact, in 2020, the government of Ghana estimates that it needs $53 billion a year to actually achieve the results by 2030. You and I know that with the fiscal situation here in Ghana and a drop in aid, and indeed a global focus around other issues, that this financing itself cannot come just from a historical vision of donors providing inputs. Beyond that, and probably more importantly, Ghana has a clear stated vision to become a self-reliant country beyond aid, as articulated in its own strategy, Ghana Beyond Aid. And it's important then to begin to think and diversify on how you bring complex resources from multiple sectors to achieve the SDGs. One of our joint projects, which involves UNDP, UNICEF, UNOPS, WHO, and a couple of others like UNCDF, is really looking on how to leverage in new finance into the space, to look at how we can support budding businesses. You talk a lot about young people. Young people will be Ghana's dividend or could be Ghana's problem. And so focusing efforts, building around government programs such as You Start, to really see where the finances can come in to support businesses, looking across this whole plethora of agencies to see how can we leverage the capabilities of these different organizations to support the development of this kind of strategy is one such example. But it's not just joint programs, it's actually joined up programming, as I call it too. So for instance, where we're working on water and sanitation in different places, are we also working on issues of the environment and climate? Are we also working on access to education? Are we also working on protecting the rights of people who are affected by, for example, for disease? Or are we working to ensure access to services for women, for girls, victims of gender-based violence? How are we integrating this work in a way? And more importantly, and now for our new shift in the program, how are we really focusing on strengthening the capacity of Ghanaians to achieve their own ambition of beyond aid self-reliance, which means a shift from doing things for Ghanaians to enabling Ghanaians to do things for themselves.
Wow, that is very deep. So how would you differentiate the UNSDP from the initial aids that were coming?
I think Ghana itself has been on a journey, and now Ghana is a firmly established lower middle income country. And so it is on a different journey. And so there can be no one size fits all. And historically, you may have a UN that has come in at key points when there have been crisis or humanitarian crisis to support and enable immediate recovery. But Ghana, even with the COVID pandemic, already showed a level of leadership, already showed that it had a plan. So the kind of UN that needs to be in Ghana now isn't a UN that is here to just deliver services because those services no longer exist. We have a Ghana Health Service that has been able to roll out vaccines very effectively for COVID. And even during the COVID pandemic, administer over 5 million polio vaccines during that period when there was a lockdown and a lot of security issues and health issues. And so the kind of caliber of advice and advisory work that the UN needs to do now is to support Ghana on this bigger vision. How are we helping Ghana through its various programs to leverage resources? How are we strengthening the use of technology across a range of fields in education to support businesses to be able to grow, to work on issues of transparency and accountability and greater accountability back to citizens, but also to enable Ghana to reach out to the bigger world. What kind of priorities does Ghana have, for instance, in relation to climate adaptation? What is important to Ghana? What is important to, I don't know, Burkina Faso up just above Ghana? Maybe totally different things. How are we helping Ghana to amplify its own priorities and its strategies, and helping Ghana to have the capability to actually be capable of having the capacity to run its own affairs very effectively? And so the role of the UN has to shift and change away from one that is providing services and filling gaps to one that is strengthening local organizations, civil society, community groups on the one hand, strengthening local governments, strengthening central government. But increasingly now, as Ghana moves on this road and looks to economic development as a key strategy for escalating to full middle income status, how are we also working with the private sector? This means different skills and capabilities even within the UN itself. And so this new program, which will run from 2022, late 2022 to 2025, will focus more on those kinds of experiences.
And is that another kind of UN SDP? Or
so that is the next UN cooperation framework. Sorry?
When are we launching?
Well, we would like to launch it before the end of this year. I'm not going to talk about dates just yet.
About it
but,
private.
Yeah, but we'll talk about dates.
Right.
But we're very excited about it. We're excited about how the agencies are all coming together to develop this idea of really doing, I think, a number of key things. True multi-sectoral partnership, moving away from just funding, and there are dwindling funds that we have anyway, to a leverager, to a supporter of really acting as a facilitator, as I've said, to pool in resources into Ghana that really help Ghanaians to be at the forefront of that activity, to take more of a backseat in implementation. So be less on the forefront implementing, what I call systems leadership. Systems leaders are leaders who lead from behind. They don't need to be in front. And the true rights holders and legitimate owners are the ones who are at the front. So how do we shift in this way? How do we bring more private sector actors? Many of them work in ways that actually support the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. How can we help them to be more intentional so that as they're doing good, as they're doing well, they're also doing good?
Right. Thank you so much. So ladies and gentlemen, you heard the word leadership rhyming through his speech. Mr. Charles Abani is a seasoned development practitioner with approximately 30 years of experience in the private, public, and non-profit sectors. That means we are here with a very great leader in Africa who has occupied bigger roles. He has worked for Oxfam, Great Britain. He has also worked for Action Aid, Absolute Return for Kids, Palladium, and Chemonix. He has also worked for USAID and he has a whole lot of experience in leadership. So we are here with a staunch leader in African diplomacy. Mr. Charles, you are really doing well. I would like to commend you for that. So
Thank you.
What is the partnership between, you spoke a little bit about that, but I want us to shed more light, the partnership between your office and private sectors who are also in the run towards attaining the SDGs in Ghana. what is the cohesion? Like, where do you people have a dichotomy?
So I think, again, SDG 17 says it all. Partnerships is the way forward. Ghana itself, and even last week, the president of Ghana was speaking about new and different kinds of partnerships towards attaining the Sustainable Development Goals. It's no longer sufficient to just put the government at the center and potentially put civil society on the other side. It's important now to integrate the private sector. So some of this is about capacity. What kind of capacity, particularly for young businesses. And, you know, there's a lot of work now around early stage entrepreneurship. And early stage entrepreneurs always struggle to find finance, for example. They struggle to have capacity to be able to develop their business to a point that real commercial organizations can take them on. Who helps to do that soft work that helps them to become ready and big for the future? So agencies like UNDP, like UNCDF, the Capital Development Fund, UNICEF have programs to support budding, emerging businesses. How are we working, for example, too, and we have a unique partnership that will start soon, where we're beginning to support young girls to learn how to code and connect them to businesses. Because as you know, the digital environment is largely male-dominated. How do we create a new generation of young people able to participate in this? This is not actually something that comes to the older ones of us. How do we create the space and the skills and the competencies? But also, how do we create a pipeline of funding that is affordable, that is durable, that is patient enough to enable those businesses to actually grow? Because that's the basis upon which Ghana will achieve its ambition. And so for us, there are a raft of different things. Working with hubs, working with incubators to help businesses to emerge, moving upstream in the value chain. On agriculture, the government has huge programs around agricultural value chains. How can we support businesses who are seeking to make entry points into various parts of that value chain? How do we support a number of companies who are already in the food business, for example, building their resilience to be able to continue to supply locally? We learned a big lesson from COVID-19. It disrupted the whole supply chains. So how does that capacity sit here? And so the likes of UNIDO, the likes of WFP, again UNDP, again, how are we able to do this? We have an innovative partnership that we're seeking to establish between banks and some of the agencies here and government to set up a fund, for example, that gives access to very, very low-cost credit to enable people even address the basic issues of sanitation, how they can build toilets for themselves and actually achieve a healthy body and mind and soul without having to rely completely on the government to go around doing this. So I think really innovative partnerships, and nothing is off the table. How do we help people strategize, innovate? How do we get a supply line of finance? But also, how do we get them to be able to identify projects that can be funded, that can be fundable, and identify, I think, investors who are prepared to be patient, who are prepared to take risk and allow these companies to flourish, these small businesses to turn into medium-sized businesses and then become part of the engine of change for Ghana.
That is great. So with all these policies in place, which will help attain the SDGs, which will also help Ghana move beyond aid, would you say by the year 2030, all the 17 goals will be achieved?
Well, Ghana has made progress on a number of goals. In 2019, there was a voluntary national review which showed progress on some key areas. As I said, even then, financing was identified. We all know since what has happened. 2020 brought COVID, significant devastation from COVID. The impacts of climate change continue to grow by the day. The war affecting prices of basic commodities. We're seeing inflation in the space, and we're seeing a tighter fiscal space. So, you know, saying that you'll have achieved this by 2030, every day some new winds come to buffer the plan and make it kind of have to become more resilient. So certainly we anticipate that Ghana will make significant progress. 2022, at the next high-level meeting, the government will be presenting the 2022 Voluntary National Review results. And again, these show progress. But again, we cannot underestimate the impacts of these global things that affect a country
really
and have a huge impact on the country itself.
They do.
But I think I would say that there's no doubt that there's an ambition to achieve this. And so where there's a will, there's a way.
There's a way. Wow. I told you people, we are here with a very staunch leader who knows in toto the United Nations system in Ghana. Mr. Charles, thank you so much. So Mr. Charles, when we have people, youth between the ages of 16 to 40, even above 40, who are interested passionately, SDG driven to assist their communities, what is your office doing for such people? Are you training people, offering internship opportunities over here?
So the Secretary General definitely has, we do have a youth strategy here.
The UN
the UN youth strategy. And we have a working group across all the agencies who meet regularly to discuss how we can better work with youth across a raft of different sectors. Some of the key things that we want to do: ensure that young people's voices are inserted effectively into dialogues. And I think last year, Ghana hosted Youth Connect.
Yeah.
Ghana has also been the host for the first 3 Youth SDG summits, which now just moved to Ethiopia. And so really what we call meaningful participation, not tick boxing, that young people are participating.
Right.
Secondly, and again, we talked a bit about economic development. How are we ensuring that actually the opportunities that exist actually are available to young people?
Right.
And particularly, like I said, to young women. How are we leveling that playing field sufficiently? So youth-focused programming that is looking at particularly where people have skills like in digital technology. How are we investing in those spaces? How are we supporting young people's voices to be heard on issues, for instance, around climate change? Ahead of the last COP26 in Glasgow, supporting young people from Ghana to join youth from other places to actually help to shape that agenda. We know that there are a number of youth activists globally who are helping to really say it is imperative that we must keep temperature rises to 1.5 degrees and below. And actually some of the strongest voices on this are young people. How can we work with them around leadership? Particularly, again, we have a parliament here which has many, many more men, I think 15%, 14, 15% women participation. If you don't work with young people now to build their capability to be the leaders of tomorrow, then they won't be in the political offices making these decisions. So youth inclusion is a very strong aspect of the work. But in addition, clearly we want as many young people to have experience of the UN. UNFPA has the big YOLE program. And the YOLE program really aims to offer young people who have finished their national service some experience of working across the UN itself. And so you will find, I think there's a new batch of 30 or 40 joining shortly, who will be scattered across the UN system and get rotations that enable them to experience the different kinds of work, whether it's on reproductive sexual health, water and sanitation, governance, climate change, all the different issues that we work on. But and that program is really growing from strength to strength. Yeah. And so we encourage people to look out, particularly on the UNFPA website, for that and to gain that experience. And I think the program speaks for itself. I think the record is that 100% of those who go through the fellowship, one way or another, either move on to further education or find gainful employment. So there's something that's happening right there.
The YOLE program has been feasible.
Yeah, and it's successful. Of course, the scale of it is very small. But Ghana has a national service system as well. And so we now actively take a number of national service personnel and bring them into the UN. The idea is that, of course, that they're gaining experience here and that they're experiencing how the UN works in order that they have the confidence. Confidence is a major thing for young people. And so building their confidence so that they can actually leverage the skills that they have is extremely important. So programmatically out there, working with a range of youth organizations. This week, as we speak, Ghana is limbering up for the Transformation Education Summit. And there is actually a pre-summit meeting going on as we speak in Paris, ensuring that there is youth representation at those kinds of events. Wow. Extremely important so that young people's voices are heard and taken into account in the way that Ghana shapes its own priorities for engaging with the Global Education Transformation Summit.
That's great. Thank you so much. So one issue which is very important to me coming from a country like Ghana is that sometimes in order for your policies to become feasible, it has to go through some formalities which end up dragging some of the policies behind. How has there been a blockage in attainment of some of these SDGs and policies from your office to the country?
So I think, like I said to you, development is a journey. The realization of rights is a journey. And so the expectation that there's a snap your finger model that brings this to bear in any context is I think, unrealistic, first and foremost.
To some extent.
And I think that if you're going to bring about change, you have to meet people where they are. You can't meet them from where you are. You meet them where they are, and then you start the journey together. So clearly, there are a range of issues over which Ghana and Ghanaians, rightfully so, have their own perspectives on those issues. And it's important to enable that national dialogue to happen, that engagement to happen, because sustainable development is never imposed from the outside. It emerges from within. And it's built around principles of it's built around participation, it's built around ownership, it's built around understanding and realization. And so I think as a UN, we want to be accompanying Ghana on that journey, rather than dictating the journey for Ghana. And I think this is a principle kind of like in development that actually leads to sustainable results. And so some people may be impatient for change today, but we know that change comes when it is owned and fully imbibed by a people. And therefore, sometimes it's important. I refer from experience to there is no one way to achieve this. Right. What we must have in the UN is a toolbox where we have different strategies, different tactics, and different contexts require that we bring these out and work with them in different combinations in order to achieve change, whether it's on transparency and accountability and issues of corruption, and people have made all sorts of allegations around that, or it's issues of rights. We know that there's currently an ongoing live issue around LGBTQ rights here in Ghana. Accompanying that journey, making sure that everybody has access to information, reminding governments of its commitments, and accompanying them in a constructive way on that journey. And the people, this is the way I think sustainable change can happen.
Wow, that is a very good one. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We are so grateful that you made it. Ladies and gentlemen, youth of all ages, I have been here with the United Nations Resident Coordinator in Ghana, Mr. Charles Abani, and we have been delving very deeper into the achievements of the Sustainable Development Goals in Ghana and the United Nations Sustainable Development Partnership, which ends this year. So, Mr. Charles, this is your camera. Everybody in the world is watching, the youth, people who aspire to sit in your seat right now. Please, what word of advice do you have for us?
So, for young people, I have a statement I make that's very simple. The youth are the future, and the future is now. So that means young people need to take responsibility now to engage in the future, because actually it will be created by young people. I tend to do a bit of work around leadership, and I often say to young people, what do you need to be able to weather a really increasingly complex world and storm? And I think there are three things. You need knowledge. And so soak it up with your young brains as much as you can. But knowledge without networks is wasted knowledge. So how do you build the networks to begin to impact that knowledge into the spaces that you need to impact them into? Whether you're a budding entrepreneur, you're a social supporter or an activist, or you are just trying to make your own ends meet wherever you are. If you don't have knowledge, networks will only take you so far. So you must have knowledge and then use those networks. But the final ingredient for me is resilience, because often the sense is, if I have knowledge and if I have networks, I will definitely succeed. And yes, you will, but you must be prepared to fail as well. And you must be prepared to get up from each failure. So building resilience is key to that. So knowledge, networks, resilience, these are the three ingredients for success and for leadership, and to be part of the journey in a constructive way to help Ghana to attain self-reliance and go beyond aid.
Thank you so much, Mr. Charles Abani.
Thank
we are
you.
So grateful. May that be brave.
Thank you very, very much for having me on your program today.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't hear anything, he said the youth are the future, and the future is now knowledge, network, and have resilience. This has been the Youth Time on Grace Life TV with me, your host, Vanessa Zeke Ade-Ado, sitting with the United Nations Resident Coordinator in Ghana. Thank you for joining us. Until then, the show comes away another time. It's bye for now.